and if you turn to Exhibit 9, there's 2 pages there. And I've gone through all the board packets. Here's 2007, and you also see 2008. Each one of those bullet points is a closed session discussion about a labor group or an unrepresented employee who is currently in negotiations. Every time you see a highlighted yellow portion, that is when the board asked me to put myself on the agenda in hopes that we would get to discussing my performance review evaluation as well. And you can see how many times that there was numerous discussions for different employees and employee union groups. And it's going to be important to get to in just a second here.
Let me ask you a question. As chief, were you responsible for preparing the agendas for the
Yes.
board meetings?
Yes.
You were the final determiner of what the content of the agenda was?
How it would go is I would list out all of the appropriate necessary points of discussion. I would get in contact with the board president. We would agree upon what those discussion points should be. And he would also then, we would confer as to what we would be appropriate to put in closed session. That information went back to my administrative assistant, who put it on paper. She would give it back to me, I would review it, and it would be in place to make adjustments to until the final posting. And the president would then review it one more time as well.
And did you confer with the district's legal counsel when you prepared the agenda?
Preparing the agenda, no.
One question, follow-up. Was the district council generally in your closed sessions?
Always.
Okay. And you may be getting to it, was your compensation, certainly your performance was discussed in the closed session. What about compensation? Was that part of your performance evaluation discussion?
Yes, they were tied hand in hand. Depending upon a positive performance evaluation, then we would discuss what the changes or the amendments to the contract would be.
And that all took place in the closed
Yes.
session? Thank you. And council was there
Always.
when those discussions took place?
Yes, always. So now you see where there's going to be many, many times when I have been asked to, or I have put myself on the agenda in order for us to discuss my performance review and changes to my contract.
Now, I think you said earlier that you weren't thinking of retiring until 55?
Yes,
So it sounds like you must have changed your mind along the way here, because now you're thinking before you're 50 or at 50. You might be retiring earlier, because you seem to be stacking the cards up in your favor now to retire earlier than 55. Isn't that the way it
you
appears
mean by
here?
using vacation callback?
Absolutely.
I used it every year as a battalion chief.
But now you're using it towards the time you're reconsidering your retirement. You're thinking of retiring not at 55 anymore, but at 50. Is that correct?
At this point, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I had benefits that I was gonna lose. I needed to do something with them,
Right.
and I sold them back.
Mr. Nowicki, on the December 10th meeting, when there were these discussions of the amendments to your contract, did you indicate to tell the members of the board that you were planning on retiring on January 30th?
At that point, I was not planning on retiring.
You wrote a memo to our staff dated,
I'm sorry.
we received November 25th, saying that I'll be retiring on January 30th.
I'm sorry, you saying December or November?
At the December 10th meeting, did you tell, when during the negotiations of the amendment to your contract, in the December 10th, 2008 meeting, did you tell the board members that you were intending to retire on January 30th, 2009?
Was that the date that they signed the,
This is the date that you sent a memo to
I'm
our
just trying to-
staff,
right,
saying that I will be retiring on January 30th, and we received it on November 25th, 2008.
I believe I did, yes.
You told the board on December 10th that you were going to retire on January 30th, 2009?
You know, I need to go back, look through those dates again, but we already had an agreement in November,
What agreement?
an agreement that I would have my vacation sale back and I could utilize, could we get to that point and then maybe it'll explain to you?
Is that part of the amendment, number 2, the agreement to sell back? Did that come out of the agreement?
Yes.
Amendment number 2, which
Yes.
wasn't approved until when, publicly? and a December 10th.
Publicly, that's the point I was trying to get at. Publicly, it was approved December 10th, right?
You tell me.
Oh, I would have,
You were there.
I can pull out the documents. You know, I'm not gonna shoot from the hip here. I have to get the dates exactly right.
Could you take a look at that memo right there that's on the screen?
Yes, I did send that.
Okay.
Yeah, after December 10th, yeah, okay.
But you're saying, in November, that come December 10th, you'll get back with this person about retiring January 30th, right?
Yes, I had contemplated very strongly, yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking now at this point, I've got to get out of here. Yes, the agreement that we had on the table in closed session was, Chief, we have completely agreed, and we're going to change that amendment. At that point, I had no desire that night to retire.
I'm trying to follow up on that comment.
What meeting was that you had the agreement on?
In the November meeting, I believe it was November 17th.
Okay, on the December 10th meeting, when it was approved or further discussed,
But it was approved in public at that point, on December.
well, the board member who testified said that it was discussed in closed session and it was voted on in closed session.
No, and he's absolutely wrong, and I will get to that in a second.
He was there also. He's telling us what he voted on, his first meeting, something clear in his mind.
They did not vote on anything in closed session, in terms of ratifying documents.
Okay, but it was voted on it was voted on, was it an open session it was voted on?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Did you, on December 10th, inform the board that your intention was that if they approved that your intention was to retire on January 30th, 2009?
I don't, yeah, I don't know that it was that day that I informed them, but I was strongly considering it, and I let the retirement board let me know what my benefits are gonna be.
Not the retirement board, your employer, the district
Orinda
board.
Moraga board.
When
Yes.
did you inform them that you were going to retire on January 30th?
I don't know the date that I told them I was gonna retire. I notified Cicera ahead of
Doesn't
time,
matter
so I
if
could
it's-
get, so I could get the numbers, so I could make a valid determination, so I could tell the board, you know what, I'm done, I'm out of here. I need to know what the numbers were, and I wanted to, at that point, if I could, retire on the 30th.
We've had discussions here about a number of things where we're trying to get in other people's head, and we haven't had the benefit of talking to them. We have the benefit of being able to compare this note with you.
Yes.
And it says here, this is a note to Cicera received on November 25th. And it says, this is the final agreed upon changes to my MOU.
Right.
Had they been approved already?
They had been agreed to, and TNA at that meeting, we had an agreement at that meeting that this is what we are going to do with your
So that's
contract.
what you meant by saying it will be approved.
Well, I'm assuming it's gonna be, yes, I had four or
But that's
five
not
of
what
the
you said.
directors.
You said it will be approved. Sounds like you had that in your hip pocket.
I knew that I had five directors tell me that we are going to approve this.
Well, that would be enough votes then, right?
Yeah, sure.
In a 5-person board?
Sure.
Okay. So you knew it was going to be approved.
They told me it was.
There you go.
Well, on November 25th, you only had 4 directors, sitting directors.
There was five directors. One was going to be replaced
When was that, when did that occur?
on the 10th. That was an election year. So one of the directors would be leaving the board, and when Mr. Mancinelli started coming to the board. So there was five directors there, and all five of them said, this is appropriate, we've got to do this, you're gonna lose your benefits.
But to the best of your recollection, I'm sorry to beat this horse dead, you don't believe that the board members were aware that you were going to retire?
They were
when approved?
absolutely not aware, because I wasn't even aware that I was
Okay.
gonna
So
pull
they
the plug
did
at
not
that point.
know that you were going to retire when they approved this additional amendment?
That's right.
But you're saying you weren't aware, but in this it says I will be retiring. So you
On
were
the
unaware of what you said?
On the 17th,
December 10th.
on December 10th, yes, I need to make a decision and I need to go. And I need to know what my benefits are gonna be when I tell the board that I'm gonna be leaving. I'm not gonna come to them and say, your chief is just about to leave, maybe, but I don't know what my final computation is gonna be. I wanted to get a computation and be aware and make a good, valid
So
decision.
what helped you make that decision then to retire? What is it that pushed you to that moment where, I'm getting out of here?
Can we give it just a couple pages here and I'm gonna tell you?
Well, I have a question. I mean, isn't it true that you decided to retire even before you wrote that memo, November 2508? Yes or no?
Absolutely not.
You thought-
Absolutely not. It was in my mind, I need to do something. Something has to change here. I want to retire, I'm gonna find out, and that's after the November 17th meeting. I had the meeting with the board, they collectively said, we're going to make these changes, and here I am, once again, 5 months out, that they promised me something that would happen 5 months ago. Nothing is getting better here. I've got to make some changes. And it was that night when I decided to take a couple of days, and I said, what am I gonna do? I've gotta make a decision.
Do you have any concern that had the board members known that your retirement was imminent, that they might not have approved these changes?
I don't want to tell the board members I might go and not go, and then have them in their mind that, oh, we've got a chief here who's maybe sitting on the fence for the rest of his career. I wanna make a sound decision and be able to.
Right, but was there any concern on your part that if they knew you were leaving, perhaps they would not approve this amendment?
No, not at all, no.
Okay.
They-
You don't
they-
think that would've-
They knew the implications of what they had promised me and what I was already losing.
Did they understand, or through discussions, I read the whole actuary report as well, how much it would cost them eventually, given the fact that they hadn't been paying as the employer into your retirement to cover you retiring with this enhanced provision, and you as the employee hadn't either, although I think at that time, there was not depooling, so it was just Cicera as a whole.
Was there a calculation given to them? No,
Okay.
there wasn't.
Okay.
And once again, it gets right back to what would I have retired as a BC? Same as I'm pretty close to what I'm getting right now. I just happen to be a chief now, and they are bringing those benefits back to me.
When did you get the calculations back,
I don't know.
incorporating the amendment number 2 benefit?
I do not know that. I'm
Was it
assuming it's
before
pretty
you sent
fast.
out the system-wide email informing everybody that you're retiring?
I'm assuming it would have been, yeah. And I might even have made, I was in constant contact with Mark, and she might have verbally given me an answer to my questions at that point.
When did you start talking to Mark?
Oh, might have been 2005, many years before. Once again, getting back to when we were looking at going to CalPERS instead of staying in Cicera, I needed to have as much information as I could so I could make apples and apples comparisons. And even with one of my directors at that time, I said, I'll go in, I'll get an evaluation done, and then we will have the numbers to be able to present us CalPERS, and they can do the same evaluation again. And we can present Local 1230 with, here's what the differences would be, here's what's acceptable and not, and here's what the numbers would be.
So were you pretty comfortable with how the calculations are done?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So even if Marge hadn't run it, because you're saying you're gonna double check it, you probably, or is it fair to say you knew where it should roughly come out to?
Yeah, I mean, I already had a calculation done previous to that, so I knew it was gonna be somewhere ballpark there.
And between 2005 and November of 2008, particularly 2008, did you talk to Marge on a regular basis about where your calculations would be?
Just when I had the evaluations done, and there was 3 of them. And if I had any follow-up questions, she would always be on the spot to answer those.
Good. When did you start talking to Marge about retiring on January 30th?
That's it.
This is the first time, your testimony is this is the first time you've talked to Marge about retiring on November 25, 2008?
No. I'm sorry, this is the first time I talked about retiring on January 30th. Is this the first time I talked to her about that date?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So had you talked to Marge prior to this note about the fact that you were contemplating retirement?
No.
This is the first communication you'd had with Marge about your impending retirement on January 3rd?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I had had a calculation done before that. It was just to get a calculation done.
So you talked to her prior, but it was not about your impending retirement?
No,
Did you talk to her in the week prior to November 25, do you know?
no. Oh, well, I mean, if I, not about retiring, no. Did she call me and, no, I can't remember. I would have had no reason to call her. She would probably have no reason to call me. Did I talk to her before that? Mm-mm.
Okay, thank you.
I made it my decision to retire somewhere just prior to November 25th. And that's when I put that memo out. I had my, which I call my come to Jesus moment. I said, that's it, I'm done. And that's why I wanted to get as much information as I could. I didn't like the way the negotiations went. There was a number of things, and I'm going to bullet point them here shortly, but that's when I had my moment where I said, this is it, I'm through here.
Well, you just said that you hadn't decided to retire by November 25th. You hadn't decided to retire by the meeting of December 10th.
I'm sorry, and you know what I'm trying to convey to you, given all that is going on, I've got to make a decision, I've got to do something. I have now finished with my negotiation, I don't like the way that went. I'm gonna find out what my options are, I'm gonna let Marge know, give me my numbers. I can stay at this point, I don't have to, just because I told Marge I wanna get a final calculation and I'm gonna retire. This could just as easily have said, I'm contemplating retiring on this date, give me my final numbers. But it's in this time frame between the last board meeting and now that I really wanna know, because it's not working well for me at this point. It's that very small period of time.
The board gave you everything you asked for, though, in the November meeting.
Everything that they had promised me in 2006.
Well, everything you asked for. You didn't ask for a pay raise
Right.
during that year. All you asked for is the ability to sell back additional vacation.
That's right, and
So
that's,
they gave you everything you asked for, and you're still unhappy with the situation?
I was, yes.
And compared to battalion chiefs, were you still at par, or were you ahead of them? I mean, how
At
much
this
more-
point, it keeps me ahead of them. Yeah, I'm at par now because they had vacation all back.
I want to make sure you just, that I heard correctly and that you didn't misspeak, because we're throwing a lot of things at you. You said they gave you everything that they promised you in 2006. Are you saying,
Not everything, they just gave me vacation all back.
okay, because they didn't promise you to convert admin leave to cashable vacation
No,
in 2006?
that was a different issue that I had PTO that I could not use, and I was gonna lose it. But we didn't even talk about those other things that would have, once again, boosted my retirement, that were sidecars in the BC's contract.
The other thing I'm struggling with here is this memo you sent out the 13th of December. That second paragraph where you say, I'm very fortunate to be part of a lucrative system. Yet I philosophically find it to be very troubling at the same time. And I too, I'm troubled a little bit about this because it's like you bought yourself out of a job by retiring early and getting paid more, going into retirement than sticking around to do the job. I'm not sure what that philosophy means, but it just seems you set yourself up to get paid more to retire early than to stay on the job.
And I will address that, and
And you knew that probably beforehand because you asked Marge earlier to kind of give you the estimates of what the retirement would look like going into the final days in December when the board would approve your request basically by giving you the Second Amendment. The way I see it, you knew you were going to go into retirement because you knew you were going to be making more. And your idea was, why stick around for a job I'm being paid less than to stay at home retired?
And I was gonna utilize my retirement. I will get into what everybody's calling double dipping and coming back and working as a chief here shortly, and I'll explain how that entire process came to be.
Is that an important part for us to know about your coming back?
It's gonna be important when you hear from me, yes.
But it's not an issue here.
It's not an issue. It's not an issue for this board.
No?
Then
No, not
why
at
is that important for us to know?
Well, I'm just responding to the agreed document that says, knowing that he was gonna come back. I didn't know I was gonna come back until I talked to Cicera, which in my letter to the board, can I just jump to that just for a second, just make a, and it's in your board packet. I believe it's, where did it go? Oh, yeah. Exhibit 19, please consider this correspondence my official notice that I intend to retire on January 30th. However, wrong letter. Yes, that's it. However, my resignation will not complete the final chapter. Cicera has advised me, and that's when I talked to Marge, that I may continue to be employed at the fire district for an undetermined amount of time. Legal counsel is going to research what there are, if there's any limitations. At that point, I didn't even know I could come back. I thought I gave them the retirement. They could ask me to stick around and do a transfer of position. But I talked to Marge, and she said, you know, you can still work there as a contract employee. Oh, really? That's what prompted me to tell the board, you know, I can stay here for a while. It doesn't make any difference to the board of directors here. No, it doesn't. But in the Reed document, it says, knowingly, he was going to retire and then come back. I requested from Marge a calculation, and she said, oh, you know, you can even stay there. Wow, okay, cool. Let me find out about that.
But you were ready to get out of there, now you're ready to come back because of the extra pay?
I'm ready just to stick around until they have another chief ready to come in. I can only stay 6 months in a calendar year. I'm ready to not jump out the door like the previous chief said to me, here's the thumb drive with all the documents you need, here's my car keys, call me at the golf course if you need me. I'm willing to do an appropriate and managed changeover to the new chief and make sure everything stays in place. But I'm not gonna do it for free. I can stay here as a contract employee. You can save the district money for as long as you want, but I will be gone in 6 months or whenever you tell me. And actually, it ended up being more than 6 months, because what we found out later on was, it is not the calendar year that the 6 months ends, it is the fiscal year where you can start again. But there was a point where we said, and in one of the exhibits in your packet there, at that point, I even started the changeover process, compiling what that changeover, and if you'd like to know what document it is, and I really hate to get ahead of myself, but in that packet, Exhibit 20, I immediately got to work putting together, how am I gonna change this over to the new chief who's here, so that I, at some point, can get out the door. I'm not the one who drug my feet on getting the new chief in. The board hired 2 facilitators to come in and do a national search to try to find a chief. They wanted to present it to the community, they could come in and comment on what they wanted from the chief. They did an immense background investigation. It was a very timely process. I could have been out of there very quickly if they had brought a new chief in shortly.
I'm sorry, just a quick question on Exhibit 19, the letter you sent to the board of directors, there's no date on this.
And I'm sorry, I don't know what date I sent that. This was a file copy.
Any rough estimate when this could have been issued?
What exhibit is that again?
19
Your
years.
exhibit 19.
I,
And it was actually delivered, because I noticed it's not signed.
yeah, I would have made 5 copies of this, signed it, and hand-delivered it to each one and entertained discussion with them. What would have been the date here? It would have been between the board meeting prior to this and that date.
Wait a second.
I'm sorry, what,
Before, the board meeting before this?
November board?
After the board meeting from that.
Okay,
Then
so you had a
December 10th.
board meeting on the 10th, before or after that meeting? Roughly.
Well, and here's December.
No, I'm sorry, and you know what, I really hate answering questions like this before I can actually, yeah. It would have been after they voted on the amendments, the adjustments, the amendments.
And on December 13th, you sent the email to MOD. Is it likely, in your recollection, that this letter was presented to the board simultaneously or in approximately the same time as the board, as the employees?
Yes, thank you, because I wanted everybody to know at the exact same time. I didn't want anybody to come up and say, oh, Greg, you told the membership, but you didn't tell the board. You told the board, but you didn't tell
Okay,
me.
so probably December 13th, if that's.
Yes, thank you.
And that would make sense. So on the 10th, you didn't tell the board you were retiring because you weren't sure. And so the 13th rolls around. How did you know when you sent this to the board and then you told your membership that it's a paper change? When was that discussed and agendized on a board meeting where they're going to make this change?
I believe in my letter to the membership, and I don't have it in front of me, I said it may be a paper change. I'm discussing it with the board, we'll see, because at the same time, in this letter to the board, it says, this is an option. And I wanted the membership to know, this is an option. And if somebody can read that point to me, it will,
I'll be happy to. It says, should that come to fruition, this is a quote supposedly from your memo, it would be nothing more than a paper conversion.
Should it-
doesn't say
should it come to
should be-
fruition?
It doesn't say it should be nothing more, it might be more, it will be nothing more than a paper conversion.
no, you said, should it come to fruition, if the board wants to keep me.
I understand, but
Okay.
but prior to that, it said that the district has discussed with him the possibility of continuing his position as a contracted employee. So who brought that up? Did you bring that up, or did they bring it up?
And
No, I put it in the letter to the board.
and
that-
when was-
I'm beginning to
were
think
those-
Marge has got a lot of juice. Because apparently she gave you this idea.
Yes, yes,
Marge
she
did,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, well, she wasn't encouraging me to do it, she just said, you know, you can still continue to work there.
She's got a future, so.
I was happy to have her as my counselor, she was good, she gave me good direction, that's what she was supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know. So, can I encapsulate all of this? When I put this letter out, I put it out to the membership and the board at the same time, that's when I have this final mind-blowing epiphany, thank you, that this is what I need to do right now, and I'm gonna discuss it again as we go through this document. And like I say, I'm so sorry, I don't wanna shoot from the hips, there's so many dates that I've been bouncing off of for the last 4 weeks here. That's the best I can do based upon the documents that I have from 6 years ago. Any other questions?
Actually, I just have a quick question for Harvey. This letter from the chief, his resignation that he passed out and delivered to his directors, that wasn't in the packet when we asked for public records?
No, that was not delivered to us.
You know, not knowing what the board's going to do going forward, I'd sure like to know what the copy that the district has on file, because perhaps they have a date, and I think that would help clear up a lot of things on this issue. Thank you.
I will say that the board member, specific board member would have had to have given it to the district to archive. I would think that
You
probably.
didn't provide one to an administrative copy to your district?
No, I verbally went in and talked to every one of my management team and told them what I decided the night before. And I will also say one thing, and this means absolutely not even a hill of beans, but I was in hopes that I could find out exactly what night I decided to retire, because I sent a memo to, or not a memo, an email to a friend. And I said, guess what? I just decided I'm done, I'm out of here. And that friend tried to see if they could recover that email from 6 years ago, because I thought that is just gonna be what everybody wants to know. And it's unrecoverable, it's too long ago.
Okay,
That would-
so at this district, if you want to retire, you don't sign anything, you don't put in any papers, you don't send a note to file? I'm asking, I'm not a member of your district.
You send a note to the payroll technician, but that's after everybody already knows about it. There's no hurry on it. You're just gonna let them know that the retirement board is gonna be contacting them. They're gonna be asking you for information. There's nothing official. And as soon as I knew, I let everybody else know too. Everybody else know, because I didn't want there to be that uncomfortable feeling of, I know something that you don't know that I know because somebody else told me. That's a bad position to be in.
So I just want to be clear. We received your note to Marge on November 25th.
That sounds right. Yeah, that is right.
You say you didn't decide to retire until after the December 10th meeting.
No. After the 17th meeting in November, when they said they're gonna approve all the amendments, I'm still not good with it. I'm making a decision that I'm gonna have to do something. And I may be answering your question in a roundabout way. I contacted Marge and said, give me the numbers. I'm gonna, or I'm contemplating, or I wanna make this happen. The final decision, if that's what I'm hearing you say, was yes. Then, after that meeting, I said, you know what, this is it.
After the November 17th meeting.
December, after the December meeting, that was the final, I'm done.
And the numbers that Marge ran for you, did it contemplate those extra cash out hours? Did it include those?
Based upon me asking her, yeah, here's what's probably going to be coming down the pipe.
Okay.
I'm still trying to get inside your head a little bit. If you reach the point, and based upon your earlier testimony, I know you have nice comments about the board members individually, but as far as I'm concerned, this sounds like a sweatshop to work in. That you actually hung in there for a long time in that sweatshop, but you finally came to the conclusion, this is it. I'm done.
Yes.
It's over. I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore, but I'll be back Monday. And there's basically no status change whatsoever. How could you do that? Most people, when they come to that conclusion to decide they're gone, they're out of here, it's because they've reached some kind of a level of crap, if you will, that says, job over. They don't say, but I'll be back Monday, and you won't even notice any difference. You have another epiphany over the weekend?
No, I was done, and.
But not
I'm-
very,
but I'm
not
not
very much
gonna
done.
leave, I'm not gonna walk away from the district. There was all of that stuff, the sweatshop stuff, that still needs to be done. It has to be handled by somebody, and we're not just gonna bring in recruit another chief to come in, and I'm not just gonna put him in front of my desk and say, you need to take care of this.
And not that it was included in your retirement, but how much did you get for that, for hanging around? Remind us how much that was.
It ended up being $19,000 or less to the district.
I'm sorry.
$19,000 a year less to the district.
Less, I'm sorry, that's
Less.
not the number I'm looking for. How much did you receive?
What was your monthly salary?
What was your monthly salary for sticking around,
If you give me a second, I can pull out my W-2s.
roughly?
Was it the same salary you had before you retired? Same monthly?
No, I believe it was less.
Well, why
You-
would it?
I'm sorry, I just can't shoot at the hip on this one. I don't want to give you a bad number.
I'd accept plus or minus 10%.
I can't even get that close. I'd be happy to go pull the document out right now if you want me to do that.
Was it more than $10,000 a month?
I'm gonna say it was probably right around there.
About $10,000 a month?
Please don't hold me to that, but I'm gonna say that's about right. That sounds right. Was it more than the battalion chief?
Well,
Not-
what's his battalion chief salary?
With their sidecars, it was probably less.
No, I'm talking about this salary, base salary.
The base salary.
Was it their base salary that you got when you came back as a per diem or a contract?
I would say that's probably about right.
That's about right, okay.
Battalion chief, yeah. And I could get you the exact numbers if you like.
So it could have been as much as, say, 12,000, 13,000,
No, it
14,000.
wouldn't be going up there.
It wouldn't be going.
No.
And how long did you hang around roughly?
I have a copy, we have a copy.
Here's the contract.
So perhaps they'll refresh your memory, I'm just,
Like I say, I have the paperwork here. Is that-
well, there's a copy of the paper. And how long did you serve under this consulting basis? Roughly, again, I mean, 6 months?
I'm gonna say 7 months.
7 months, okay.
8 months.
So after basically throwing up your hands saying, this is it, my life, I can't live this way anymore, you were able to hang around for another 7 months at $14,000
We
a
need to have a
month.
chief in that seat.
Well, that's not my point. My point is it reached such a level of frustration for you, and I appreciate how you got there, that you couldn't take it anymore. Unless it was for another 7 months for $14,000 a month more.
It was not just I couldn't take it anymore, I don't have to take it anymore, but I'm gonna hang in here until you get me a chief to sit in my seat so I can be comfortable in walking away from this.
Well, when you use up your vacation hours, how many did you have left over for the next year, say? Or could you have cashed out if you retired a year later?
Oh, I still had hundreds of hours.
Did you?
Yeah. The salary is, that's a monthly salary of $14,700.
Okay.